the day of the anniversary. I planned to surprise my boyfriend with something in the glove compartment, but I didn't expect that. When I opened it, a white lace panty that looked very familiar fell out. The edges of the panty were a bit torn and misshapen. Clearly, it had been through some intense pulling. This panty was originally a gift I gave to my best friend. Before I could think much more, I momentarily lost focus and accidentally crashed into a car that suddenly changed lanes in front of me. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the white walls of a hospital. My boyfriend and best friend were standing on either side of the hospital bed. They looked at me with worried expressions. Emily tightly held my hand. Her tears couldn't stop falling. She said, "Jessica, you really scared me. When I heard you had an accident, I almost fainted. Thankfully, you're okay." She gently pushed Daniel. Her voice was nasal. She said in a playful tone, "Jessica has just woken up. She must be hungry. You should hurry downstairs and buy her a bowl of porridge to fill her stomach." She directs others with her actions and tone. There's an indescribable intimacy and familiarity. Since I woke up, Daniel has been looking a bit dazed. Emily nudged him. He frowned, but he didn't say anything. He turned and left the ward. Emily called out again, "Get me one too." I want Daniel to interrupt her. His tone was a bit impatient. "Got it. Pork and century egg porridge. Very clever." Emily watched Daniel walk away. Then she turned to ask me, "Jessica, what's going on? How did the accident happen all of a sudden?" The traffic police mentioned my condition while driving. I smiled gently. I interjected, "It's nothing serious, just too tired from the business trip. I got a bit distracted while driving. Daniel and I are each other's first love. He was my senior in college. It was during my sophomore year. He fell in love with me at first sight. He quietly stayed by my side for a year. In the end, I was moved by him. We became the couple everyone envied. We had 4 years of sweet romance. We met each other's parents. Naturally, we planned to get married. In his eyes, there has always been only me. When Emily returned from out of town, Daniel and I went to pick her up together. She heard that I was Daniel's first love. She jokingly said, "Oh my gosh, you're so handsome. It's surprising that you've only dated once. That's such a waste." Hearing this, I was momentarily speechless. I didn't know how to respond. Daniel gently held me in his arms. His eyes were filled with affection. He smiled and said, "How could that be? I can meet Jessica directly. Walk through this life with her. I think it's worth it." Emily was momentarily speechless. After a while, she pouted. She said quietly, "I was just joking." "Why did you take it seriously?" "Emily moved in with me 2 months ago. After graduating from high school, we had less contact. I only heard she went to college up north. She got a boyfriend just before graduation. After graduating, they stayed there to work together. 2 months ago, she suddenly called me crying. She said she broke up with her boyfriend. She wanted to come back to clear her mind. I know her parents are divorced. There are no relatives here, so I happily invited her to stay at my place. Daniel and I have already set a wedding date. We are currently living in our new home. Although we haven't seen each other for a long time, Emily still likes to cling to me like before. Whenever Daniel wants to get close to me, Emily pretends to be angry and pushes him away. Then she tightly hugs me. She acts cute and whines. "Jessica, look at him. He has monopolized you for so long. He still won't let me have you these days." Seeing Daniel's frustrated and helpless expression, I gently patted his hand, trying to comfort him. "These days, Emily has occupied almost all of my time. Daniel's attitude towards her has changed from indifference to dislike. When Emily is not around, he finally has a chance to get close to me. He hugs me from behind. His warm breath hits my neck. His voice sounds a bit wronged and helpless. "Baby, why is your friend so clueless about boundaries? We are both getting married. Our honeymoon trip is coming up soon. Do you still want to be with her every day?" After hearing his words, I lifted my head and gently kissed the corner of his mouth. "All right. Didn't you say we all need to get married? We still have a long way to go." "Right, Emily is my friend. She just got out of a relationship recently. We should be more understanding of her. I will make it up to you slowly in the future." "Is that okay?" Daniel hasn't finished speaking yet. Then he suddenly kissed me. After a while, he finally released me, panting. I tried hard to hide the desire in my eyes. Because the wedding leave is coming soon, I need to finish a few projects quickly. The boss decided to send me on a business trip for a month before I leave. I'm a bit worried. I'm afraid that while I'm gone, Daniel and Emily might have a disagreement. After all, I feel that Daniel doesn't really like Emily. I decided to help Emily find a short-term rental to stay temporarily. But after looking at 4 or 5 places, She was not satisfied with any of them. So I started to worry. Emily, the locations and prices of these houses are quite suitable. Why don't you take another look? But Emily's eyes are red. She said, Jessica, don't you also not want to care about me anymore? My parents don't care about me anymore. My boyfriend left me too. Now even you want to drive me away. She choked up while wiping her tears. I looked at her. It reminded me of her bright smile standing beside me in high school. My heart couldn't help but soften. In the end, I still considered that she had just gone through a breakup. Her emotions are quite unstable, so I let her stay at home. She suddenly smiled. She gave my cheek a kiss. She said, You really care about me the most. Don't worry. I won't have a conflict with Daniel. I will try to avoid him. I won't make it difficult for you. During those few days when I was on a business trip out of town, Daniel video called me every night. Besides saying that he misses me, he asked me when I would go back. He will still complain to me about Emily. He said Emily doesn't sleep at night. Cooking late-night snacks almost burned the kitchen down. He had to get up to clean the kitchen. Then he made her another bowl. He said, Emily usually doesn't pay much attention to tidying up. Used facial cleanser and body lotion are always left on the sink. He has to clean up every time. He said, Emily once caught a cold and had a fever. She made him fetch tea and water like a servant. As a result, he missed an important meeting at work. He said, to thank him for the fever medicine he bought, Emily specially made him breakfast, but she accidentally used the wrong seasoning. The fried egg turned out to be sweet. In a place Daniel didn't even notice. Emily has become the main topic of conversation between him and me. He hasn't mentioned Emily's lack of discretion in a long time. Those seemingly trivial complaints, although they are filled with dissatisfaction, yet it carries an inexplicable sense of closeness. This makes me a bit uneasy. So I quickened my pace at work, thinking about getting back as soon as possible. Things changed before I got back. One night, I was busy working in front of the computer. Daniel suddenly called me on video. In the dim light, he told me with a grim expression, Emily wants to see the diamond ring I ordered for her, but she accidentally lost it. That was the ring he had custom-made with the designer 6 months in advance. 25 carats, perfectly cut, brilliantly dazzling. He put a lot of thought into it. He said, Jessica, I'm really furious. She lost the ring. I scolded her a bit, and she got angry. A girl running out in the middle of the night. Isn't there something off about her? In the blurry video feed, I can't tell whether Daniel's expression is angry or worried after he lost his temper. His brow was furrowed. He looked both impatient and disturbed. I was just about to speak when he abruptly interrupted me with a forget it. I'll go look for her cut me off. The video had finished playing. The screen quickly dimmed. My tired face was reflected on it. My complexion was pale. Clearly the result of staying up late to work. But Daniel hadn't shown any concern for me at all. I gripped my phone tightly. I tried hard to suppress the discomfort in my heart. I kept calling them, but the entire night, they didn't answer. The busy tone on the phone and the violent sound of the wind and rain outside felt like knives stabbing at my heart. Suddenly, a sense of inexplicable fear swept over me. He was my best friend in high school, and she was my girlfriend of 4 years, the lover who is about to enter the marriage hall. They disappeared together into the rainy night. I fell asleep with my head on the table. When I woke up, the wind and rain outside had stopped. Daniel's call came back at that moment. He said to Jessica, I'm sorry, Jessica. Last night, Emily went to the bar alone and got very drunk. After I took her to a nearby hotel, I meant to tell you right away. She threw a tantrum when she was drunk. She broke my phone. Her own phone was dead too. So I only got to inform you now. His voice was a bit hoarse and carried a hint of fatigue. So you mean to say, neither of you could call to tell me, and no one was seen the whole night, Daniel, even if you really couldn't notify me in time. Where did you spend the night last night? What happened between you and Emily? What exactly do you want to express? Daniel interrupted me before I could finish speaking. Emily is your friend. I'm taking care of her for you. I've already been taking care of that drunk person all night, and I'm exhausted. I really don't have the energy to comfort you anymore. All these years, Daniel has never spoken to me in such a cold tone. I felt a tightness in my throat. My tears couldn't help but fall. On the other end of the phone, it felt like I could hear Daniel from college firmly saying again, Fool, you are the person I love the most. Of course, I will always treat you well. I've seen him when he was patient and loving towards me, so I can sense it. He has changed. There was silence on the other end. It seemed like Daniel heard me crying. His tone softened. I'm sorry, baby, I'm so tired. It wasn't intentional for me to snap at you. I really didn't mean to. Don't cry anymore. Okay. He suddenly thought of something. Gently comforted. You believe me. I will have the designer make a ring that is exactly the same as the previous one as soon as possible. I think so. Yeah, maybe if I hurry back. Everything will be like it used to be. I worked even harder to catch up on my work. Finally, I moved my return home date to the anniversary day. But just as I was driving to Daniel's company, I found the lace panties in the storage box. I recognized these panties. In the mall, Emily picked them up with a smile. She gestured in front of the mirror and said, Jessica, look, this outfit is both pure and a little sexy. Doesn't it suit me perfectly, seeing that she really liked it? I bought it and gave it to her. Now, I trembled as I picked up that sheer lace fabric. I just felt a tightness in my throat. Everything in front of me started to spin. My doubts have finally been confirmed. I suddenly felt a wave of confusion and pain surge within me. The congee has been bought. Daniel knows my taste very well. He specifically bought chicken congee, and he didn't add any scallions. Emily just took a sip of the congee. Her brows immediately furrowed. Why is this congee so salty? Did they add too much salt? She picked up the bowl and naturally scooped a spoonful of congee. She brought it to Daniel's lips. Daniel almost instinctively lowered his head. The two were very close together. Daniel suddenly stopped just as the spoon was about to touch his lips. It seemed he just remembered that he has a fiancé. His fiancé is sitting on the hospital bed next to him. He asked, Jessica, you like the congee here? Are you still feeling dizzy? He approached me with a hint of nervousness, trying to reach out to touch my forehead, but I avoided it. I caught a glimpse of his hand hovering in the air. He said calmly, I'm fine. Just drink the porridge yourself. Emily listened to me. Suddenly, she understood. Her eyes widened. She quickly said, Jessica, I'm really sorry, you know me. I'm this casual with everyone. I momentarily forgot he was your boyfriend. You won't blame me, will you? She pouted, looking a bit troubled. That naturally doll-like face pretended to be adorably childish. In the past, I was fooled by her like this. Now I just feel everything has changed. I don't want to look at her again. It's really ironic. I stayed up late to get back early, burning the midnight oil. And my good friend is wearing the lingerie I gave her and did those intimate things with my fiancé on that stormy night. I dialed their number over and over again, and they were together all night like a real couple. They were together the whole night. I closed my eyes. I suppressed the emotions inside me. I looked at Daniel and Emily again. Smiling, I said, of course not. How could I be angry with you? You are irreplaceable in my heart. All of you are irreplaceable. So, I want to give you a very big surprise. After being discharged and returning home, Daniel became more attentive to me because he was uneasy. He was like a newlywed husband. He started to learn how to cook and wash dishes, helping me share the household chores I used to do. Emily walked over with the last dish. Smiling, she said to Jessica, Jessica, you are so lucky to have such a caring boyfriend. She said, I'm not as lucky as you. The men I've encountered are all unreliable. I really wish I could have met a good man like you earlier. My gaze swept over the dishes on the table. It finally landed on her. Since you like it so much, how about I let him go to you? As soon as I finished saying that, Daniel's expression immediately turned sour. He paused for a moment, feigning anger. Don't say that recklessly, baby. This kind of joke shouldn't be made casually. He wrapped his arms around my waist, smiling as he said, how could I just let him go to someone else? I replied with a smile, haha, I was just joking. Look at how nervous you are. We always show our affection so openly. Emily would definitely feel uncomfortable seeing this. I said with some annoyance. Emily had been silent, just about to speak up. Daniel suddenly interjected, how about this? I'll help Emily find a place to move out. Emily, what do you think, Jessica? Look, he wants me to leave again. Emily's eyes turned red. She complained to me like before. I could see her eyes filled with unwillingness and anger. She smiled faintly. Emily, Daniel and I are getting married. It's really not appropriate for you to stay here. It's better to move out. Not long after dinner, Emily said a friend invited her for drinks, so she left. Daniel, who had just finished washing the dishes, received a call for overtime. He hurriedly left as well. At this moment, I installed a dual-lens dashcam in the Mercedes. A fierce live broadcast was happening. Emily tugged at Daniel's sleeve. She was crying continuously. Do you really want me to move out? I never thought about ruining your relationship with Jessica. You don't need to take responsibility. I simply like you as a person. How could you treat me like this? Maybe it's because of my sympathy for Emily. Or perhaps this temptation is just too hard to resist. In the end, Daniel still embraced her. He skillfully removed her clothing. Amidst the intermittent sounds of gasping and collisions, his voice was low and indifferent. He said, "Jessica must never know. 1 week before the wedding, Emily moved out. I understand. They just changed the meeting place from my house to a house outside. Baby, you have been on a business trip for so long. I really miss you." Daniel hugged me from behind. His warm breath sprayed on my neck. I froze for a moment. I awkwardly shrugged my shoulders. "Let's forget about it tonight. The wedding is coming soon. I'm a bit tired." He listened to what I said. He paused for a moment, then he hugged me even tighter. His voice carried a hint of tension. "What's going on? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "No, just a little tired, baby. You've been a bit distant with me lately. Is something bothering you?" I can hear Daniel's nervous voice behind me. It feels like my heart is being twisted by a knife. Turns out he also feels anxious. He clearly enjoys the thrill of secrecy. Yet he feels guilty towards me. It's like there's a hint of sincerity hidden in the deception. I press my hand to my chest. I keep reminding myself, just wait a little longer. Wait a bit more. I want to use his guilt and unguardedness to turn into a sharp sword aimed at him. I want them to feel deeper pain than I do. There's nothing particularly troubling me. It's just that I'm getting married soon. I don't know why, but I feel a bit nervous. After hearing my answer, Daniel let out a gentle sigh of relief. He smiled and said to me, "Don't be nervous. It's nothing serious. We're going to pick up the newly customized diamond ring tomorrow." "Okay, the wedding is in 3 days. Daniel and I are going to pick up the newly arrived diamond ring, although it was rushed. It looks exactly like the previous one. It still sparkles. The quality is fine." Daniel went with the staff to sign and confirm the information. The phone on the table kept flashing. I unlocked the screen. I saw a message from Emily. "I'm pregnant. Don't worry. I won't let this child affect your wedding with Jessica. I'll give birth to the child myself. If you have anything to say to me, just come to the hospital to find me. I'll be waiting for you there." I saw this hypocritical message. I couldn't help but laugh. Daniel is always cautious in his work, but Emily doesn't want to just be a mistress. She will naturally find ways to ruin this wedding. This perfectly aligns with my expectations. It won't be long. Daniel is back. Half of his face illuminated by the phone screen was constantly changing expressions. In the end, he finally spoke to me. "Jessica, there's something going on at the company. You should go home first. I'll head back later." I smiled. "I'll go with you. Anyway, I have nothing else to do." His gaze was somewhat evasive. He gently pinched my face. "Speak, no need. I'll take a look and be back. It won't take long." After he finished speaking, he quickly kissed my forehead. Then he turned and rushed off to his next appointment. He was in such a hurry. He didn't even notice that I was following him closely. The day before the wedding, according to tradition, the bride and groom cannot meet. I hid under the covers. I turned on the dashcam, on the screen. The man who is about to become my husband is shirtless. He is hugging someone else. I smiled faintly. Now we just need to take the final step. Then they will be completely finished. I'm feeling a bit unwell. I think I have a fever. I sent a message to Daniel at that moment. The man in the video suddenly stopped moving. He quickly sat up. He hurriedly put on his shirt and pants. "What are you doing?" "Just because Jessica said something. You plan to leave me here all alone. Go find her yourself." "Daniel, what do you take me for?" Emily tightly grasped Daniel's sleeve. Her face showed a hint of helplessness and fragility, however. Daniel's profile appeared cold and resolute. He firmly pried Emily's fingers apart one by one. "She is my wife." "What are you?" he said coldly. "You need to understand your position. All of this was initiated by you." Then he signaled for Emily to get out of the car. I didn't notice the resentment and unwillingness in her eyes. In less than half an hour, Daniel came back. He was carrying a bag of medicine. He looked quite anxious. He was clearly just with another woman. Now he pretends to be deeply affectionate towards me. He reached out and touched my forehead. "Worried," he said. "You have a bit of a fever. Take a fever-reducing medicine and rest for a while. Is that okay?" "I'll stay with you." I took the medicine. Let him hold my hand tightly. I slowly fell asleep. When I woke up again, it was already dark outside. Daniel was sitting next to me. His expression was somewhat complicated. He had been holding my hand. He didn't let go. "I just had a dream." He looked a bit confused. He said, "I dreamed that a matchmaker told me it was inauspicious for us to meet today. Something bad might happen." He held my hand tightly. He said softly, "Jessica, Dreams and reality are opposite. Right? I smiled. I didn't say anything. He continued to comfort himself. We're getting married tomorrow. How could that be unlucky? Yeah, how could that be unlucky? The day of the wedding, the banquet hall was specially decorated. Everyone was happily chatting and laughing. I was holding the bouquet. I was just about to walk up on stage, suddenly interrupted by the host's exclamation. The auspicious time is almost here. Why haven't the bride's relatives arrived yet? I adjusted my dress and said with a smile to comfort everyone, they just told me there was a traffic jam on the road. They might be a little late. It's fine. Let's start according to the normal procedure. After hearing this, the host obviously breathed a sigh of relief, quickly arranged to play the wedding march. As the music begins to play, the front door slowly opens. Under the gaze of all the guests, I walk down the red carpet, towards Daniel, who is on the stage in a splendid suit. This is the wedding I have always dreamed of. The venue is beautifully decorated. The theme colors are filled with a dreamy vibe, and that man who promised to love me for a lifetime, to the sound of everyone's enthusiastic applause. I extended my hand to Daniel. He was so happy that his hands trembled a bit. He took out that special ring, and then he slowly placed the ring on my ring finger. Just as he was about to completely close the door, a familiar female voice came from the audience. Daniel, are you really going to abandon me and the child? Upon hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. I flinched, and the ring fell to the ground. Daniel nervously grabbed my wrist. It was so strong that it made me a bit sore. He said, Jessica, listen to me. Emily was just joking with us. I smiled slightly. Is this a joke? Just then, the large screen behind suddenly started replaying the video. At the entrance of the hospital's obstetrics and gynecology department, the video of Emily and Daniel pulling at each other was recorded, and there were clips of the two entangled from the dashcam. These are the highlights I picked out after spending several hours. I ended disappointed to select these exciting clips. In the quiet venue, only those embarrassing sounds echoed. Daniel's mother in the audience was shaking with anger. She rushed up and slapped him. How could I raise such a disappointing child? To do something so shameful. Daniel's face turned pale all of a sudden, faced with the undeniable evidence. He was speechless. I glanced at Emily standing not far away. She looked terrified. I said calmly, Daniel, you just want to have some fun, but Emily has different plans. I've done quite a bit of research these past few days. I contacted some of Emily's former classmates. I discovered many shocking things. Emily just went out of town recently. She was quickly blinded by money. She got involved with an older man from outside the school. She moved into the upscale apartment he provided. However, she didn't realize that this man already had a family. Before long, his wife came looking for her. She was thrown out along with her belongings. Emily had long lost interest in her studies. All she wanted was to depend on a man. Her life became a complete mess. In these past few years, she not only failed to find a wealthy man, but she also got expelled from school. This time she returned. She came to find someone to take over. Daniel comes from a good family. He has a stable job, and he's easy to approach. She immediately set her sights on him. I looked at the chaotic scene below the stage. I moved closer to Daniel. I whispered in his ear, "Do you really think Emily would be willing to follow you without any name or status? She intentionally left her personal belongings in the car for me to find. She even forged a pregnancy test result to deceive you. The goal was to force me to leave. She did all these things just to drive me away so you could take over her life, and not to make you feel entertained or excited. You want to have the best of both worlds. There's no such good deal." After saying that, I forcefully threw the bouquet at his face. "Daniel, these 4 years, just consider me as someone who found a strong young person to play with. Now I'm not playing with you anymore." Daniel called my name with a pleading tone. "Jessica." I didn't wait for him to finish. I left without looking back. The wedding was suddenly canceled. Daniel instantly became the laughingstock of our friend circle. I also sent the same video to Emily's new company. I heard she was fired immediately. I knew they would come looking for me sooner or later, but I didn't expect Daniel to come so soon. He stopped me downstairs at the company. He had noticeable dark circles under his eyes. His hair was messy. He looked completely worn out. He stood in front of me. His eyes were filled with hope. "Jessica, can you give me one more chance? You have to trust me. I will make sure Emily completely leaves our lives. We can go back to how we were before." "Okay," I interrupted him. "So, are you willing to transfer those 2 properties to me?" He was taken aback for a moment. He quickly answered, Okay, I will sign the agreement right away. I'll give you both properties, consider it, a way to make up for my mistakes. Okay, this is what you said. I will send you the agreement tonight. I was just about to leave. He suddenly grabbed my wrist and said, "Don't go. Let me explain." Okay, looking into his stubborn eyes, I sighed helplessly. Even at this point, Daniel still doesn't understand. The feelings between us have long since ended. He said, "Jessica, you have to believe me. I have truly never liked anyone else. You are the only person I deeply love. It's just that, thinking about how I'm about to get married. I can only be with one person in this lifetime. You just feel, it's quite a pity." I followed his words and continued. "You feel like you haven't experienced other lives. And now you're going to be tied to one person. What a pity." Daniel's eyes gradually turned red, just like when he confessed to me back then. He asked, "So you want to experience something exciting before getting married?" "Right," he said. "I'm sorry. It was my moment of confusion. It's all my fault." I sighed. I gently wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes. "Daniel, do you remember you said that your first love would be me, to walk through this life with me? Not a loss at all. But what about you now? How do you feel inside? Marry me. I've put you through a lot." He suddenly froze. His tears started flowing again. I smiled slightly. I didn't wipe his tears anymore. "If your dream is to be a useless cucumber, then you and Emily are indeed a perfect match." He released my hand. His hand was still trembling. His face was pale. He said softly, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." I took a step back. I waved my hand. "Goodbye, Daniel. I hope you keep your word. Transfer the property to me as soon as possible. Otherwise, your leaders and colleagues might see those videos." Not long after, Emily also asked to meet me. Her makeup was still exquisite, but the swollen bruise on her right cheek was clearly visible. She stared at me. She looked closely for a few seconds. I really didn't expect it. The usually docile, "You actually devised such a scheme to deal with me. It seems even a cornered rabbit will bite." I smiled faintly. "Emily, so many years have passed. People will change, just like how you have become so disappointing. I will certainly change too." The way I seemed completely unconcerned seemed to hurt her. She lifted her chin. She coldly smiled and said, Don't think that just because Daniel is unwilling to marry me, I have lost. I have plenty of opportunities to start over, to find a better and more outstanding man. As long as I'm still alive, I will definitely live better than you." I didn't say a word. I just looked at her with sympathy as she tried to remain calm. "Don't look at me with that kind of gaze. I hate your kind of look the most." Emily suddenly became emotional. It was as if she was about to release all her long-standing frustrations at once. She said loudly, "From childhood to now, what makes you better than me? I'm good-looking, I have good grades, and I have good relationships with people. If it weren't for being born into a bad family, how could you possibly be qualified to be compared to me? My achievements today are entirely due to my own efforts. Unlike someone like you, who relies on parents or boyfriends, why should everything go smoothly for you? Why should you be better off than me?" I find it ridiculous how she confuses right and wrong. Just take out your phone, open the album, flip through the pictures one by one to show her. That photo shows her being slapped by someone's legitimate wife from the company. In the photo, her hair is a mess. Her face is severely swollen. She looks very disheveled. She pretended to be calm in front of me, but in reality, it was not the case. I saw her suddenly turn pale. I said calmly, "Stop pretending, Emily. I know you've had a tough few years. No money, beaten, fired. No one is willing to take you in. Those years. I really considered you a friend. No matter if you say I pity you or look down on you, but I genuinely felt sad for you once. Unfortunately, you are not only not smart enough, but also ungrateful. If I had fed a stray dog back then, it wouldn't have turned around to hurt the person who helped it like you did. It hurts those who help it in return." Emily's face turned pale. Her lips trembled slightly, but in the end, nothing was said. I stood up. I looked down at her from above. "Let me give you one last piece of advice. When life gets tough, you should seize every opportunity to strive. Make yourself capable of standing on your own, instead of placing all your hopes on others, or even doing things that hurt yourself and others. Go find a job. It might just save your messed up life. Don't let me see you again. I can't stand it." After saying that, I walked away without looking back. A pained scream came from behind. She said, "Jessica, I hate you." Later, Emily and Daniel never came to find me again. I just heard that Emily still wouldn't give up. She kept bothering Daniel, either forcing him to marry her or asking him for money. They caused quite a scene. Daniel was close to losing his job. It seems she didn't take my last suggestion seriously. The day Daniel's property transfer agreement was signed and sent over, I was just about to go to the airport, flipping through the travel guide with beautiful tropical plants, pristine beaches, and blue waters. I suddenly felt very excited, finally free from those annoying things. Now, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life. The sky is vast, the sea is boundless, the sun is shining brightly. A fresh start. It's never too late.